Welcome back everyone to part 2 of this week's Melbourne Punters show. Boys, last week saw the launch of the DK and pod sets, and there was some learnings that came out of it, but at the end of the day, we're in front.
If we start talking about all the lessons we learned, Juppy, we could be for 2 hours just talking about the DK and pod stuff. But happily, despite the multitude of errors that we feel like we made, we did find 5 winners in 19 bets. We outlaid 70.5 units with a profit of 12.85 units. So it must have been 83.5 or whatever it was.
18% or something like that.
Yeah, so 18% profit on turnover. So it was a good start. DK was particularly good. He was a bit more selective than me and really finished the week strongly. My metro tips were pretty good, but I've made a few errors in looking at some of the provincial races that I've learnt from, and I think it'll only get better from here. It will be much better for the run, DK.
Much better for the run, much better. But I had a little bit of trouble trying to find the balance of doing my own stuff and then the tips as well. And so we went first 3 days, I think we went minus 20 units or something. But then we sort of got our groove in on Saturday, which is the main day. If you want to get your groove in, Saturday's the day. Everyone's interested and wants to bet on a Saturday. And then we're blessed we got a photo on Sunday from a nice horse. But I was telling Jumpy on the way up in the lift that the horse we backed on Sunday was a thing called Vorspiel at Colac, and it's trained by Mick Kent, ridden by Beera Willa, and at gate 13. And I said to Juppy, if you told me 2 years ago that I'd back, let alone tip other people, a Mick Kent horse with Beera Willa on it from a wide gate around Colac, I would have dead had you committed. But that was the lessons, the lessons I've learnt the last 18 months, and particularly this year, is that you just got to treat every race as its own little equation, and eliminate, the mind fucks, as we say, that sort of stuff, and you see, the clarity. And anyway, but hopefully, back to the DK and pots. We good to get a profit on the first week because it was a bumpy week, but hopefully for the subscribers we can kick on and get going from better.
Well, it got me into the brown stuff on Saturday at Yarra Valley. I managed to nick a little bit after the save bet one, and then of course batted up 460 top fluck.
We had a good crack at the Boy Wonder in that race, same race that they were good because they got there on the turn and 100 to 1, and then those 2 horses. But Benny Allen's horse just had a wide run, and Robbo gave the Kurgan the peach, and it was lovely I'd had a bit of a grubby run up until that winner hit the line, so it's just good to find a winner.
So for those that have seen the story on the Punter Show website with the results on it, if you're wondering what we're basing the results on, basically for the metro meetings we'll just use best of the best, because most people can access something like that, or you can outperform that without too much difficulty. For the midweek metro stuff, we'll just use top fluck. And for the provincials, we're using a combination of the fixed price that's available and the best hope. So some will see Vorspiel, we put 460 on the results. 460 was the top fluck. We're not using the top fluck. And it paid, what did it pay on the post?
370 or something.
But throughout the morning, between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, $5 was freely bet. So we're saying if you had some of the 5 units on at $5 and some on at best total or whatever, or you bet during betting, something in the 440 to 460 range was a reasonable price. So we're trying to make sure the results reflect what our subscribers will do. So if anyone thinks we're gilding a lily or we haven't been fair anywhere, please just email in. That's not our intention. Is to report the results, realistically as to what sort of prices people would secure. So
that's right. And just as far as we had another question regarding, or someone asked you regarding what product, should we put a product to the, say back at best total, take the fixed price and things like that. But as I said to Potts, that was particularly in the country, when the market is so volatile, the early markets go off at the sniff of the dollar and just get aggressively turned off by the corporate's pricing algorithms, and then can just be expressed back out in the market when the robots tune in with 3 minutes to go. So it's very volatile. So it's a bit of catch and kill. If you're smart, you can see that if you're trained. A lot of people know how Betfair works and things like. If you can think it's going off, use your gut feel and have something to fixed price. But I would have thought if you take best tape and most of the country ones, that's not going to be too far off the mark.
Best tape SPs.
They're not all going to be hemorrhage jobs. Some of them get out. The robots don't get it as right in the maidens and things like that because they don't have a lot to work with as they do in town. So we can get things can kick out right out late, and you can get a big spoil in the best tape and things like that. So I think that'd be the way to go.
And the other problem with actually giving specific advice about that is that if everyone does the same thing, we're all likely to take unders, right? We already talked previously about the level of sophistication of our subscribers now, the people that we talk to that are attracted to the Punters show and sort of thing. Regularly with the other sets I do, I'll say to the guys, like, I've just done it off, might have used best of the best or top fluck or whatever, and said the result for the day is plus 20, and in the chat room, and they'll come back and say, oh, mine's plus 28 or plus, because they've handled it really well.
Yeah.
So I'm saying we're deliberately trying to make sure the results are realistic, and we hope that the sort of subscribers that we've got can outperform the results that we're reporting. So,
especially with the country ones, the worst thing you can do is as you say, Dan, if something goes off and say it's 460, it doesn't take a whole heap of money to make it 360, and then if you're chiming in at 360 and all of a sudden it pays 520 on the tote, you're filthy on yourself and you're filthy on the world. Especially in the country, the smaller meetings, patience is a complete virtue there, because it's not like the city where the markets, they've got a lot more to work with in town.
Yeah, you don't have to be as paranoid about trying to catch them when they're going off, because really you don't know what's going to happen until the last few minutes, you know. And they could go one way or the other. It's a bit of a guessing game. You just use your intelligence, but yeah.
And often when people ask me about this type of thing, I say, look, there's nothing wrong with just if it's 11 o'clock in the morning and your horse is running at 2 o'clock and you've got 5 units to have on it, just have a unit every hour or so. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just take the average, or you can save half of the bets in the lead up and save half for the last 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with price averaging. It's a good what you'll consistently, do okay if you do that type of thing.
So just go 1 to follow, is it? One,
yeah, head to one to follow there, and it's $20 a week, and it's brilliant.
Hopefully,
so jump on board, everyone. It'll be a good little service, and even as we said, like, there was a learning week and we still won, so you can't ask for too much more.
Tips from Wednesday through Sunday, so on all of those days, unless we just don't find anything. And as I said, we ended up across those 5 days, we ended up with 19 bets for the week. So that's it's about, we'll be in that sort of
15.
Probably 10 to 20 range, regularly, I would say.
Now, on to the next issue, boys. I'm actually frightened about tomorrow because Kittens blew up last night and there's no Betfair tomorrow. So I'm not actually sure who's left to price up Sandown tomorrow. I don't think there's anyone left who actually knows how to do it in the industry. So...
I put my in. I've got a set of prices. They're done to 100%, so they probably want to, get a couple of rolls over them.
Ring in, because I know there would have been a heap of them at Kittens who could have possibly been explosion victims, and now we've got no Betfair for the rest of them to follow. So
I can't wait till tomorrow, actually. I'm looking forward to the betting tomorrow. I just think it'll be fun.
I was going to say, could Vision Australia, we'll put a call out, could Vision Australia please round up any spare CI dogs, drop them off at Sandown and Canterbury, because the bookies and some punters out there will not be able to find their way home without Betfair on, so they might need some help, so that'd be good.
And coming from that, one of the tweeters, the Gaylays, has suggested that tomorrow would be a good day for a punter strike to put that on to at least get some awareness of what the customer base could do if they decided not to bet tomorrow. But the problem is we're all desperate and there's probably a chance that there's going to be an end, so we're going to be betting.
The fact that it's on the day when Betfair's down is a good day. A lot of blokes of those would have been out of action anyway, but it has brought, there's been some good arguments, not in the of Pat Bartley, of course, or probably Matt Stewart, the Herald Sun, but Brendan Cormack wrote an article in Australian, Brad Davidson gave good coverage in the Gold Coast Bulletin, and there's shining light on the minimum bet rules and issues we've got with that, so if that's the good that come of it, it's good.
Well, I think, but on this show and other, things like jury duty and in the mainstream and even other, Twitter and all sorts of areas of racing, it seems to me that the minimum bet rule thing is getting a little bit of momentum, and it's, in Racing Victoria, it's probably coming up a little bit in their mind, with Andrew Twaits responding to us and stuff like that. So I think the worst thing we could do right now would be to chuck the toys out of the cot and, so we're all going on strike. So, because I guess just as a personal thing, I'm sort of not keen on strikes ever, but I would say to the guy that come up with this, if we get far enough down the track and we are being taken completely for granted, and none of those issues are fixed up and the situation continues to deteriorate and not get better, I would think it's something that we all should take seriously, if we ever get to that point. So I hope we never get there. I'd rather argue for the point that we're trying to get. I'd rather argue for it than, take my bat and ball and go home. But if it ever does happen, it'll be, I would think the racing administrators will have got what they deserved.
Well,
if it ever does happen,
we've seen recently in England the pendulum start to slowly swing the other way. Coral, who are the sponsor on Channel 4 Racing, which is the terrestrial TV channel there where you can watch racing every Saturday. Basically what they do is they'll put all the best races on. They might only put an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of content on, but in that 2 hours they'll squeeze all the best races from around the country on that day. Coral have said, we'll lay any horse in the shops for cash, odds to 1,000. Which is especially in Sterling, that's a very fair bet, and they've seen enormous growth in both the turnover and the margin they're making.
That makes sense. This whole business of restricting and everything else, it doesn't really work.
No.
It creates other problems for them. So, look, at the end of the day, I think if we ever get to a point of a strike, I think we should do it properly, like a couple of weeks or something, and make them really feel it. Like one day, it's not going to do. It's not going to have anything.
Yeah, that's right. Bit of publicity and a bit of
You'd send them a message without actually. But if you really wanted to read it home, you're right. You go right. We're just not betting for the whole weekend, and that's it. And what's something you brought up? The Mark Lambourne articles that he's been putting up.
Well, I mean, I just thoroughly enjoyed those two articles Mark's written the last couple of weeks, and Mark he's got a blog that I didn't know he had, so he forwarded me a link to that, and there's a treasure trove of great articles on that blog. Like I sent Mark a message saying that like the quality of the writing in those articles and the thought it provokes in you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like surely at some point in the future, Mark's going to put all of this stuff together in a book and together with some of the no doubt wonderful racing stories that he'd have that he probably can't quite tell yet, but they'd be there in the memory. And God, if he ever did produce a book, I know I'd be first in line to buy one, and I reckon every punter I know would be keen to read it. You know what I mean?
It's a profound impact on me, particularly in the last 12 months. I mean, watching the Sydney Punter Show and get to part 3, and no offence, Dale and Glenster, but I just fast forward straight to the bring.
Yeah.
So what am I going to learn today? What can I put into practice? And and then he'd talk about the golden switch. Back in the low draw, back from the low draw, high draw. And I just knew there was one next week for me. It hit the line. I said, "Oh, beautiful." And then what we've been going about, he went on for weeks about the low draws and the high draws, and that's had a big impact on my stuff as well. And then gear change equals intent. The blinkers first time with all these weird horses has been all over that, and the SP,
SP profile.
First up run. It was just so many. It's just so.
Or the one that the friend of the show, Marco B, brought up, the don't be fooled by the group enlisted form of the age and sex restricted races.
Particularly 3-year-old fillies.
Yeah.
Stakes form that isn't.
Yeah.
So
in honour of Mark, I would say there's no market up yet, so I haven't bet myself, and I hope that they put up a price. Of course, Bet365's got a price, but it's not really a price, is it? It's just like a fictional thing.
It's a fictional thing.
It's a fictional thing. So I hope the other non-fictional operators follow Bet365, because if they do, I will be betting. There's a golden switch horse at Sandown tomorrow. I'll let the punters find it for themselves, but it went from gate 1 last start. It's the outside gate tomorrow, and it chased home a very good horse. I think that's enough clues for the punters to figure that one out. And there's a very good chance price dependent, that'll appear in the DK and Potts text service tomorrow.
And just for the record, I love Bet365. Keep it up.
Yeah. Juppy and
Juppy
the king of the bowling.
Boys, there was a really good article that was sort of tweeted and retweeted around during the week. I think it was from, what was
UK Insider or something like that?
Was it The Economist magazine? Something like that. Yeah. But it was all about...
I think our old mate Matty Taylor was the...
Yeah.
I saw it off his Twitter.
Yeah. And it was all about one of the biggest punters in the UK, in Tony Bloom, the Lizard, who's based down in Brighton, where I worked for a period of time down there, and he 3 or 4 years ago bought his boyhood football club, Brighton and Hove Albion Seagulls, and since then they've gone from League 2 to being in a playoff contention and potentially move up to the Premier League, so back another winner there if that happens, because that's worth an absolute fortune to him. But there were some really interesting things that came out of how he runs his business and just some of the learnings that we're able to get from that. And either check out, if you're on Twitter, check out Matty Taylor's Twitter, or I'll dig it up and retweet it, and I'll also retweet the link to Mark's blog as well.
Yeah.
But there was some really good stuff in that article.
It was, yeah, and I was looking for some, it was great, huge operation, very successful, but I was looking sort of for the stuff that could help me. And there was a great quote which resonated with me, and it said, "At university, I made myself a promise that I would become fiercely disciplined. I wanted to gamble because I enjoyed it, and therefore I needed to do it properly in order to win. I don't want to lose my money." And that's that fiercely disciplined. I've highlighted it. You learn it over time, and I wish it's something we could, you could just instill in yourself like at the click of the fingers, but it doesn't happen. And sometimes you only get it by losing and experience and things like that. But I think the more successful I've become at this is the far more disciplined I've become over the last 3 years in my things. And Potts would probably be the ideal person to talk about that.
Yeah, I think discipline comes in all different sort of forms.
Yeah.
So for some people, discipline is being prepared not to bet in a race and to just wait for the opportunities that suit them. With me, the discipline is working really hard on my prices, getting my prices as tuned as I can get them to try and, because you're giving the corporates, let's just say, a 20 to 25% head start in their percentage on the market. So you've got to bet them by that far, then enough again to win. So if I don't get them prices as sharp as I can get them, you're not going to be able to bridge that gap. So there is. One of the disciplines I have trouble with is eliminating races to bet in.
Letting things go that's tough.
Yeah,
so you look at this thing and you just say, I should be on it, and possibly should I let it go? Shouldn't I? Maybe it's a 6 to 4 chance or something. And
I think it's easier to let races go if there's only one horse you want to back. But when you've identified, so these are the 3 best winning chances. Yeah. That's where I operate. I operate in trying to isolate about half of my market. So I can get half of my market. So effectively, just say I've assessed that these 3 horses are a 50% chance of winning the race, and I can get $2.20. That's an opportunity for me. So that's the way I tend to think about it. But if I don't put the hard work and the discipline into getting those prices right, the whole thing falls to pieces. And when I first started betting for a living, and so it's 6.5 years ago now, when I realised that I could make a go of it, one of the first things that come to my mind is, I love doing this. I want to do it forever. And if I lose my discipline, if I waste any money, if I make too many mistakes, I'll be back getting a job back in one of the other industries I worked in.
And that'd be scary.
And
that's the thing we don't want to do.
Absolutely.
Go back to the factory. If you're out and you realise how much you enjoy doing this, and trying to make it, win at it is key. It's critical, and just that's what drives you. It drives your discipline, because you think about what the alternatives are. Going back and sitting in a factory for the next 20 years of your life.
Getting up early, punching the rubbish truck around, it's not that much fun.
So the reality is just, if I can offer any of the punters, I don't bet in any race unless I've priced every horse to 100%. So every race I've bet in, that's happened. And even with the DK and pot stuff, because I know the stuff that Dan does is so well executed on the maidens. I'll go and then have a look at that race and try and get an idea of, I know which horse Dan wants to back, so I want to back it too. I just want to get an idea of what price it should be. So I'll go and have a look at that race just so I can do it. And so, that's just an example of the discipline I think Tony was referring to there. That is relevant to me. But I think everyone's going to have their own angle on it. You know what I mean? But if you want to make living plan, you have to be well organised. The reason that the corporates are so successful is because they've got a really well organised capital structure. They've got a massive bank that a normal punter can't possibly beat. Only some, Kerry Packer or someone's going to scare them. So for you've got to give them a head start straight away because they've got their market percentage in their favour, and they've got all that organised capital, so they're not overbetting their bank, makes them extremely hard to beat. So you've got to make sure what they want is punters that overbet their bank and
for sure.
get themselves off balance mentally and will lose their discipline and start making mistakes.
Yeah.
That's how they beat people. So if you want to beat them, you've got to do the reverse of that.
And that's not enjoyable. This is, it says here, I want to gamble because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But there's no joy in going off tilting or doing, chasing or owing. We've all probably been there and done it. But
we saw that in the chat room, didn't we, Pots?
Yeah.
Like if you lose it, it's no fun.
No.
But and the other quote that was interesting was they don't beat the market all the time, just enough times.
Yeah.
Well, that's relevant for me because particularly me, because I'm only betting say one race a day. Where Potts might say, well, I'm going to bet in 8 races, and he can move from race to race. I've sort of probably made my decision at 8:30 in the morning. The race might be on at 1:30. So I've got all this time, even though I'm trying to work, I say, well, I don't know when's that race coming up, and I'll build myself up to that big race, and then if it gets beat or it wins, or then I can stew for another 3 hours, and it's sort of a bit of a crescendo.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, well, it shouldn't be, it should just be another race, and that I'm just, in the scheme of 1,000 races every year, it's just another race, and I've got to just, again, it just goes in the balance of getting more races wrong than right.
From my point of view, that's the absolute key to this game. Once you realise that there is no last event to bet on, and this is all just part of it.
Yeah. And
once you master that, and you don't let the emotion take hold, you don't chase anymore, and it's just, once that gets into your head, you're pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah, and then there's a thing like the robots in that scenario. We've got, some of us, this here is what we've got our edge over the robots, but the robots just bet like every race, it's just another race in 2 minutes. They just go there, the prices bet, and just keep turning over money, and know they're going to win at it, and that's because we've got, I might only have one bet a day, or one bet every 3 days. Sometimes you can think differently, I think it's got to win, it's a must win, if it doesn't win, oh shit, I'm not going to have another bet for 3 days, and sometimes that affects, I've got to get my head around that.
It's also the way you structure your time too. It's like I've got mates that like professional cricket traders. There's no point me asking them a question during the IPL because I'm not going to get a response. They're in the bunker, that's the focus, that's what they need to focus on for that 6 weeks and so on, because that's when they're going to make their money.
Yeah, I think some of the things Dan just touched on, they're really important. So we had a really bad day 2 weeks ago at Caulfield. We backed a bunch of horses that ran second, and in my case I did 6.5% of my bank, right? So I'm saying to the punters out there, if you did more than 6.5% of your bank in your betting myself that day, have a real look at what you're doing. You shouldn't have done more than that. That should be where it's at when we have a disaster. But the discipline part that Dan's talking about then, I knew I wasn't going to have another bet till Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I spent Monday and Tuesday working my tail off, making sure my prices were as good as they could possibly be for Wednesday.
Yep.
So we stopped the right.
Stop the right.
Yep.
Okay.
So we finished the day on Wednesday. I produced a pretty tight betting plan. I think we only bet in 4 races last Wednesday, I think it was. 4 or 5. We won 20 odd units. And it gets you back on the right foot and you go into the week. And so last week I had a pretty solid week after the disaster. That's where the discipline comes in, because if you follow up a disaster with another one, it can all run away from you really quite quickly.
And the thing is, we try and control as much as we can in this business, but there's one thing that you simply can't control, which is when the winners come.
Yeah.
You can't control. You have no control over that. You could have,
we're talking, and we're doing this in this say Vorspiel one for us, and we're great for the set and everything for us. We backed it and everything, but we're talking 100th of a second.
Yeah.
That's won by an absolute bee's dick.
Yeah.
So, and they're the variances we deal with. So you just got to, one will go your way, one won't. But you can't do that individual thing.
In a lot of cases, and I've said this to Potts and these, but I've probably said it on here before too. With that day at Caulfield where I think we had 5 seconds, I'd rather they ran 5 11ths, because at least then you can go back over and look and see if there was any mistake. If they run second, they've done just about everything right, but they just haven't quite got the job done. And sometimes it is just variance like that where that's just going to happen. There'll be other days where if the slight luck's in your favour and you get 5 winners, well, it's the biggest bonanza of all time. You probably add another 6.5% or more to your bank.
Yeah, as always, it's a really challenging game, and I can't agree more with the points that were in that article that Dan's highlighting. One of the points I was going to make, particularly the way I do things with the metro stuff and the full sets, the form goes through cycles, and the hardest times to win, there's about 8 of them a year, is when the form cycles cross over. So you get a lot of horses with old form, so that it can be spring form or it can be off-season summer form, running into, so let's say it's old summer form and they're coming to the end and they're running into horses resuming off the spring, getting prepared for long. They're the most difficult times to go through, but you can still win, it's just harder.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a bit more variance involved. And people have asked me, why don't you just have a couple of weeks off pots and just let them weeks cycle through? I think you can still win during those periods, and B, I think if you get through them well and on the front foot, you're in the prime position to take advantage when you get into the middle of those cycles, when all you've got are horses between second and fifth up, and the form's really clear, and you get that clarity that Tony Bloom talks about in that article. Clarity and judgment is essential to pro punters.
Yeah.
And you know, those weeks when the form just falls together really well, and I'm really confident about my betting plan, I'll ramp the units up as much as I can.
Yeah.
It's because I've got that clarity of judgment that only comes with fighting through the difficult patches. So
Yeah, I find, I mean, it's no, I find it's just, I have two different jobs here. My November through to January is always good, summer, and June through August is always average.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the reason is the wet tracks.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, thank God for the synthetic. That's
Yeah.
sort of twice a week there, and hopefully more now with Pakenham. But you know, if I find the wet tracks really challenging, I'll try and chip down. And if I couldn't, I was a multi, I'd go away. I'd take the family away for those 3 months every year and go and sit in the beach somewhere. But we can't do that. But anyway, the dry tracks and as in the summer form holding together. There's no crossovers or anything like that, and everything's, you know. And then when these new horses start appearing in them, and then at the end of January and things like that for the autumn, then it starts getting a bit, you know, you can still win, but it gets trickier.
have you looked at those periods? Was it the same last year? Did you
Yeah.
look at the same?
Yeah.
Because I would say when I first started, I really had that problem.
Right.
I let it get into my head. I naturally assumed that winter was going to be really tough.
That might be part of it.
And I really
Yeah.
picked up some pieces off Mark about the way the tracks race and fitness being the absolute key
Yeah.
on testing tracks.
Okay.
And I stopped looking completely at wet and dry track statistics, at the horses that, you know, that are good on the wet and all that sort of business.
Yeah.
And I completely threw that out the window, and in winter in particular, just concentrated on finding the fittest horses in the race.
Okay.
Ever since I've done it, I've found winter like as good a time as any of the pair.
Yeah, well, it's typical. A lot of my horses were young, lightly raced horses,
Yeah.
haven't seen it and
Yeah.
things like that. But no, I might. That's it. Try different angles and things like that, and I might
And also-
keep that in mind this year.
Also, pods during the winter, well, especially last winter, we had a really good period, didn't we? But also, we were racing on those tracks that were draining well and were a bit drier than some of the ones you can find up the bush. But yeah, what you're saying makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That if you've got the fitness edge.
Equally, we had a disaster in April last year when we went from this whole stack of dry track form, and then it was particularly in Sydney, and then it just rained, and you had all this dry track form on wet tracks, and it was terrible. I mean, we just could not. We'd back two horses in a race. One would be $15, and one would be 6 to 4, and the 6 to 4 would get the photo every time.
Every time.
It was
And that was the character building phase rather than the bank building phase.
Just
So that
just
last
cyclical.
April was.
Just cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you do it all the time, it's just cyclical. It just things happen and they pan. It just balances out. And
Yeah.
And that's why, like, especially from my point of view, I'm not, like, it's nice to have winning days, but it's whether you're winning at the end of the month, year, especially year, that's when you know that you've been doing a lot right, when you look at your figures at the end of the year and go, yeah.
where you decide how you mark yourself. Do you mark yourself on winners back, or do you mark yourself on turnover over a period, or winning over a period of time? And it's hard to differentiate, especially if you've got I've had that must win. I've got a young family, and
Yeah.
everyone, a pregnant wife and everything. So I've just got a bit of the must win
Yeah.
in my head at the moment, because
Yeah,
because it's what it is. But if I just feel it back to say, no, if you keep doing what you're doing and look at it over the 12 months, like you have done over the last 2 years,
Yeah.
simplify it,
It's all good.
Yeah.
So here, our focus is on the profit on turnover. So after 1 week, 18% for the DK and pots. For my other stuff, I'm starting from January 1.
Yep.
The 6 months last year between July and December was very good, but it's done with now. So we'll
Yep.
just file that away, and we'll start from January 1. From January 1, if you bet on all of my Melbourne sets, it'd be 54 units, I think it is, plus for the year at 5% profit on turnover. So that really bad day at Caulfield was a setback, but we're still okay, and we're fighting our way through, and we're getting very close. We're probably 2 to 3 weeks away from getting into the middle of that cycle I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When the form will all become clear and we'll really be able to take some advantage.
And as a follow up to that, I have bet all those sets, and I can tell you that day at Caulfield a couple of weeks ago, I didn't lose 6.5% of my bench.
You didn't?
No, because I've lost it on the basketball later.
Oh, well, there you
but,
go.
but that's because I've got a diversified thing. But not only that, my staking is part of what you're doing. So, yeah, you're going to have bad days. Like, I could have easily gone and kicked on to the basketball after that and had a strip out on that too, and then I have had a all bad day. But you have to be prepared for them, and you can't get carried away when you have good days, and you can't get soul crushed when you do have the bad days. You have to try and keep an even keel, and it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah. Anyway, what more we talk about that?
So make sure you head to One to Follow. Pots are set for tomorrow and the weekend.
Yeah, good. And people they can watch the show if they want to try and fire in ahead of the DK and pot stuff going out in the morning. What the golden switch horse is tomorrow. We will give a free set to whoever the first person on Twitter to come to Juppie with who the golden switch horse is tomorrow. Gets a free set for tomorrow, or a free set for next Saturday, whatever you want.
And DK and pod set, it's going to be a killer. So jump on and grab that. We'll be in the chat room as usual. The big tournaments are starting to heat up, so make sure you jump into them. You've got all the products for Sydney because the racing's starting to really fire up there. Depends on whether it's 3 minutes after Melbourne, but who knows. So if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask, fire in. You can at the Picnics on Twitter. He's at WinBetDan on Twitter, or just email the Punter Show and we'll get hold of it. We're happy to discuss it here.
If you ever want to contact me, you can either send an email to the boys at the Punter Show or contact Juppie on Twitter or whatever, and I'll be more than happy to contact you directly.
All right, guys. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you next week.